Hi everyone and welcome to my Our Fantasy Bingo TBR. I've never done the Our Fantasy Bingo board before, but this year I decided screw it, I wanted to give it a go. So today what I'm going to be doing is going through all of the prompts and exactly what I'm going to be reading for them. So let's just get right into it. Going along the first row, the first prompt is trans or non-binary protagonist, so I'm going for Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This one has a trans main character and is also written by a trans author, so its own voices for that representation, and this one is about ghosts and magic and acceptance and this kind of thing. I've heard amazing things about it over the years and I've been desperate to read it for a while, so this is going to be the book that I choose for this prompt. Second square is to judge a book by its title, so a title so epic that you had to pick it up, or a title so weird and off-putting you needed to know why it was called this. So I've gone for Out of the Drowning Deep by A.C. Wise because the title immediately drew me in. This one is about a murdered pope and angels and this kind of thing, but it was definitely the title that really sort of drew my attention, so really excited to be reading this one as well. The next prompt is translated, so basically a story that has been translated from a language you don't read or speak, so I'm going for The Promised Neverland volume 11, I think it is. I can't quite remember exactly which volume number it is right now, but it is around volume 11 anyway, and this series is about a group of children who have been raised in an orphanage, believing that eventually they will be adopted, but it turns out what happens when you get adopted is that you are actually fed to demons who have taken over the world, and it all goes from there. This series has been so much fun to read. I've really enjoyed reading it over the last few years, so very excited to continue on with it. The next prompt is to read a book that is either published by a small press or a self-published book, so that is basically any book not published by the Big Five, and I've gone for Caitlin Rosakis's The Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teacher Association. And this one is about parents basically dealing with the fact that their daughter has been bitten by a werewolf and she now has to go to a supernatural school. This one sounds amazing. It was published by Titan, so definitely not by one of the Big Five. I read Dreadful last year by Caitlin Rosakis and really enjoyed it, so very excited to be reading this one this year. The last prompt for this row is Unusual Transportation, which means a story that includes a surprising method of moving from place to place, and by unusual they mean that it's out of the ordinary for real life and also uncommon in the book's broader genre. So I'm going for The Strange World Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski because in this one the main characters jump into suitcases and travel that way, which sounds like a really fun time. I really enjoyed Kickflip by L.D. Lipinski, which I read last year and really loved it. I gave it 5 stars and I've wanted to read more of their work ever since, and this one sounds like it's going to be a fantastic time. Onto the second row now. The first prompt is The Afterlife, so a story that deals with the realm of the dead. This could be communicating with the dead, spirits, transferring over, or being set in the afterlife itself. So I'm going for Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett because this one is all about death himself, and I think this is the one where he takes a holiday, if I remember rightly, and it goes through obviously all of the consequences of death not reaping people, this kind of thing. And while this is kind of stretching the prompt a little bit, I feel like it still fits in pretty well. I also really wanted to put a Terry Pratchett book in here, and this felt like the opportune time to do that. Next prompt is Game Changer, which is to read a story that features a game or a competition. So I'm going for The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport, and this one is a sci-fi fantasy crossover that is also based on the Roman Empire, and there is also a games element in it, and all of that combined makes it sound like it's going to be a really fun time. I've heard amazing things about this book as well over the years, so definitely going to be giving this one a read for this prompt. Next up is Vacation Spot, which is to read a book that takes place somewhere that you'd like to visit, whether that be fictional or real, and I'm going for Loki Journey into Mystery by Kieran Gillen and Catherine Locke, and this is actually a novelisation of the Kieran Gillen Loki Journey into Mystery run, which is one of my favourite Loki runs of all time, and I've been wanting to read this this for a very, very long time itself, just to see how it changes the original story and everything else. It sounds like a really, really fun time. And this one is taking place in the Marvel Universe, which is somewhere I desperately want to visit, even though I would die in 5 minutes, I won't lie, because there'd be an alien invasion, or like Loki would turn up, or I don't know, Mysterio or someone like this would turn up and I would die in 5 minutes. But either way, it takes place in the Marvel Universe, and specifically it takes place in Asgard, which is somewhere that looks like it'd be a lot of fun to visit. So definitely is counting for this prompt. I am so excited to read this one. It's been on my shelves for far too long. Loki is one of my favourite characters, hence the Loki horns down here for the cosplay, and I am just so excited to finally read this one. Next up is to read 5 short stories, and this is to read any 5 speculative fiction short stories, and I've got a couple of options for this. The first one is Something is Killing the Children Volume 8, which is actually a series of 5 short stories all about Erica Slaughter working for the House of Slaughter, taking down monsters, things like this. And then I also have Our Shadows Have Claws, and this one is 15 short stories, if I remember rightly, all spooky sort of horror stories based around Latin mythology, if I remember rightly. Or I also have A Taste of Darkness, which is another horror anthology. So I've got a few options for this. It's going to depend on what I'm feeling like, what I have time for, but I like having options for this, and it's going to be one of those 3. And then the final prompt for the second row is the older protagonist, so a story that features a character who is at least 50 years old. And again, I've got several options for this one. The first one is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, because this character is immortal and keeps on basically reliving his life, so he is technically over the age of 50. He's probably physically like 30 or something, but mentally he's definitely over 50. He's like 200 or something, so he's definitely counting for over 50 on that case. Or I also have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, where our main character is definitely over 50. I don't actually know how old she is specifically, but she's definitely over the age of 50, so he's counting for this as well. Then onto the third row, the first prompt is Duology Part 1, so to read the first book in a duology, and it turns out I don't have that many duologies where I haven't read the first book, but one I do have is God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This one is all about a woman who saw her family murdered by a god, and now she is a god killer. It sounds amazing. I've heard so many people raving about this one, so I'm going to be using it for this prompt. Next up is to read a book that has been part of the Our Fantasy book club or read along, and it could be any past or active book clubs or read alongs, and I decided to go for Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, and this one is a Carmilla retelling. Yes, it is a Carmilla retelling, which means vampires and this kind of thing. I've been in a real vampire mood for the last few years, and I've been wanting to read this one ever since it dropped through my door, so definitely going to be using this opportunity to read this one. Then we have published in 2026, and I've got a couple of options for this one. The first one is Derek Landy's Doctor Strange run, because this one is currently ongoing and I've been loving reading it, so I'm thinking I may go for that. Or I may go for the final few issues in the Ultimate Universe, which is also coming out this year, so it's going to be one of the two. Not entirely sure yet. I'm leaving my options open, but it will be one of these two almost certainly. The next prompt is Explorers and Rangers, so a story that features an explorer or a ranger, and I'm going for The Forest Grimm by Catherine Purdy, and this is a dark fairy tale retelling. It's not a specific fairy tale, I think it features a whole load of them, but either way this one definitely has explorers and rangers in it, or at least one of the two anyway. I saw it essentially on the Storygraph challenge where a few people had added this one, so I decided that it was going to be my pick as well. I can't quite remember exactly what this one's about. I will report back on that, but either way, very, very excited for it. I could also read Fantastic Four for this one as well, because they are explorers by definition, but I'll see where this year takes me and which one I decide to go for. The next prompt is Duology Part 2, so the second book in a duology, and for this square you are actually allowed to use the same author you used for Duology Part 1 without violating their same author rule, but I've decided not to do that. Instead I've gone for I Am the Dark That Answers When You Call by Jameson Shea, and this is the sequel to I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast Is Me, which was all about ballet and ambition and making deals with pulsing rivers of blood under the catacombs of Paris. I absolutely love that book. It was one of my favourites of last year, so I saw saw the opportunity to read the second part of the duology and immediately knew it had to be this book. I am so excited to read this one. Then for one word title, I had a couple of options again. The first one is Feed by Myra Grant. This one is a zombie story, and then I also have Burn by Patrick Ness, and this one is about dragons. Again, I'm not entirely sure which one I'm going to be reading. It's going to depend on how much time I've got, what I'm feeling, but I do have these two options. Next one is a non-human protagonist, so any main character who is not human, and I am going for The Lost Girls. This is by Sonia Hartle, and this is all about vampires. And again, like I said earlier, vampires are very much the in thing for me right now. I want to be reading all of the vampire books, and this was just the perfect opportunity to put this on this TBR. Next up was middle grade, so I'm going for Mia and the Lightcasters by Janelle McCurdy, and this one, it says, creators of Starlight, protectors of freedom. I have owned this book for 3 or 4 years now, I think it is, and I have not read it yet, and I know I really want to soon, so this was the perfect time to put this one also on the list. Next up is First Contact, so a story that prominently features interspecies meeting for the first time, and I've gone for No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull, and this one is all about what happens when monsters decide to tell the world that they exist, and all of the chain reactions that happen after that. Again, I've heard some amazing things about this book. I've wanted to read it for a really long time, ever since it came through my door last year, if I remember rightly, so definitely want to be reading it for this prompt. Then the final one on this row is Murder Mystery, which is to read a book that has a main plot of the story focusing on solving a murder, so I'm going for Fugitive Telemetry, which is the sixth book in the Murderbot series, where Murderbot is on the station and it discovers a dead body, and then it's all about it and everybody else trying to figure out who the dead body is and what's actually happened and who's murdered them. I am currently listening to the audiobook of this one, really enjoying it, and it is the perfect one for this prompt. And then for the fifth and final row, the first one is Cat Squasher, which is to read a book over 500 pages in length, and I have gone for either Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch, which is a chunky book at, if I double check, it's definitely over 500. It is 630 pages long. Or I may go for Ashes of the Sun. This is by Django Wexler, and this one is even chunkier. It actually scares me to look at it, to be honest, and this one is... actually, it's around the same length. It's 642. So, two books, definitely over 500 pages. Not entirely sure which one I'm going for yet, but it will be one of these two. Next up is Feast Your Eyes on This. So, food or a meal is very significant to the plot, and I've stretched this a little bit with This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham, but it is a zombie book. There is a lot in here about food and eating because they are zombies, and I am counting it because I really didn't have anything else, and it just felt like a good idea at the time, so that is what I'm going for. Next is published in the 70s, and I really did not have that many books I could choose from, but the one I did go for was The Princess Bride by William Goldman. This one was published in a time 1973, so it's definitely in the 70s, and I really enjoyed the film. I love the film The Princess Bride. I have watched it over and over again when I was a kid, and I've always meant to read the book. I think I read it, or half read it, when I was a kid. I definitely haven't read the whole thing, I know that much, and I cannot remember a single thing about it, so it is essentially reading it for the first time. I know that is cheating. I am going for it, because I literally had no other book published in the 70s available to me, so this is what I am using. And if that doesn't count, I will probably use some comics, because there are a whole load of them that were published in the 70s on Marvel Unlimited, and it feels like that is basically my only other option. Then we have Politics and Intrigue. So politics are central to the story's plot, so this can include anything from royalty, elections, wars, to smaller local politics, and I've decided to go for either The Bone Shard Daughter, All Hail Chaos, or Queen Bee. Again, I'm not entirely sure which one I'm going for. I'm keeping my options open, but those are the three I'm thinking of. And then the final prompt is Author of Colour, which again I have multiple options for. The first one is This Ends in Embers by Camila Cole, which I could also actually use for the duology part 2 prompt. I'll see how things go, like what I read first, but this is definitely an option for either of those prompts. I've also got as well Light Years from Home, but I'm starting to think that's not going to be a good option, just because it is definitely more contemporary than sci-fi or fantasy or anything else, so I may leave that one off the list entirely just because of genre, but then I've also got The Never Tilting World, also Into the Sunken City, Blood Debts, and a whole load of others I could choose from, but those are the ones I'm currently thinking for this prompt. And that is all of my options for the Our Fantasy Bingo 2026, so I'm not going to be lifting up the stack because it is absolutely massive and I don't fancy dropping it everywhere, but that is currently all of my options. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you're reading for this, I would love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a book stack emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website and also YouTube channel dedicated to Marvel Comics if you are interested in any of the ones I have just mentioned. Or if books are more your thing, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But till next time everyone, bye!